Hi guys. So I've got a little bit of a problem with the Creality 3D V2.4 board in front of me here. Essentially, um, the hot end temperature sensor doesn't work, and it manifests itself as a thermal runaway error because it's reading, whilst it's cold, like room temperature, it's reading 160 degrees or something like that. And all I've done here was I've identified where the passive components are that link to the two ports, the two analog to digital converters, which basically take the analog readings of the thermistor and then convert it into a digital signal that we can interpret, scale, and so on and so forth to be able to read the values of the thermistor. And what I've done here is I've just marked out the hot end side and the bed side. So this is TB, so that's where the thermistor bed is. So that's basically this side. And then TH is the hot end side. And as you can see, I did manage to scratch off the number. This is supposed to be a 4.7 kilo ohm resistor. But the issue that I'm having, and I'll just plug in the board right now, so you can see it does come on, so that's good. It's working, at least in that sense. It has been tested in the machine as well, but if we just have a look at reading the voltages, so I'm grabbing ground from here, which is just the SD card slot. It's just a nice big area, easy to grab ground from. If we measure right there, that's the ground side, and on the other capacitor, this is the ground side, so that's good. And then if I measure the voltages on the other side, I've got 4.903 volts on one side and 1.178 volts on the other side. And this leads me to believe that something must be wrong with either those passives or whatever is happening internally here. But the problem is that the documentation only states that it has an internal pull-up resistor. And what I currently believe is going on is maybe there was a short or something, and that internal pull-up resistor is no longer at the value that it was designed to be. The problem is I don't know how to test it. I don't know what the value should be, and I don't know how to test it. So if anybody knows, please let me know, because this is the only thing, these two ports here are the only thing that I believe might be causing issues. So because I'm reading the bed probe fine, and when you blow a fan onto the probe, the value starts increasing. So that gives me confidence that this might be correct. You know, the value itself might not be true, might not be calibrated, but at least it's increasing, at least it's doing something. This one, because of the fact that it's only reading 1.12 or 1.178 volts, leads me to believe that this side is dropping voltage far more than what the analog to DC converter can interpret, and therefore it is reading such a high temperature. I don't know. I've checked all the wiring all the way down to the probes. This is the only way, this is the only place where I can find a discrepancy. And if I measure the voltage here, for example, I can see that this is 5 volts. If I measure the other side, so basically that little hole there is connected to this capacitor, is connected to the 5-volt input on the chip, and is again connected to the other resistor right there. If I measure at this point, it's just because it's easy to probe, I've got also 5.09 volts. So the input voltage of 5.09 is essentially the USB input voltage as far as I can see. But for some reason, here I'm only getting 1.178 volts. And I've tried removing these components, so the two passives. I've tried removing the capacitor, thinking that maybe the capacitor is faulty. I've tried removing the resistor, thinking that the resistor might be faulty, but that's not the case. Essentially, they're reading the same value, and I've removed the other two as well because I know that my bed is working. So I've removed these two, and essentially this is a 100 picofarad capacitor, I think, or 10 picofarad capacitor, I can't remember. And this one was a 10 or 100 nanofarad capacitor. It's a much smaller capacitor, so I just forgot what the values are. But anyway, this is the only thing that I can see being a difference. And when I remove the passives, and let's just unplug the power for a second. If we measure the resistance between ground and, let's say, that side, I can see that I've actually got 56 ohms. But if I measure on the other side, so that side, I've also got 56 ohms. So the two input sides, because this is the, I guess, I don't know whether you call this input or whatever, the 5 volt sides are measuring the same. So it's getting the correct supply of 5 volts. But if I do measure the resistance between the inside pins, which is basically these two are in parallel and these two are in parallel, so I can also measure the resistance from here. Here I've got 120 ohms, but here I've got almost 300 ohms, which sort of hints at the fact that maybe due to the huge resistance, there's also a big voltage drop, and that voltage drop is that 1.17, whatever we were reading before, is therefore not being interpreted correctly over here. So this is all I can figure out right now. But if anyone knows whether replacing this chip will actually do the job, then please let me know, because I can just replace that and I don't have to buy a new board. I've checked whether these are connected anywhere else on the board. I couldn't find anything. So yeah, if you have any information regarding this, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching.